So my undergrad degree was in youth ministry, and I actually started working with kids when I was 15. So I was a kid myself, right? And as I grew up, I continued working with kids, all the way up until the time I was 27 when I joined the Army. And the realization to stop working, there you go, I see you now. The realization when I stopped working with youth was kind of like, I didn't really like the way the youth, were transitioning. It didn't really meet my personality. I was very judgmental, to be honest with you, So with that, it's like, hey, I'll go, work with other people who are kind of like myself and join the military, right? So did that.
How old were you when you joined the military?
27. So huge life difference between, someone straight out of college. And then, I had already been out of college for a little while. I already had multiple jobs. I had been in leadership positions vocationally since I was 18, right? So my first manager job was when I was 18. And then, from there, so a whole lot of life experience. Went to college for way too long. And just kind of, but with that aspect of college is I always like to learn, right? So join the Army, go through basic training. I was soldier of the cycle for basic training, which basically means top soldier, right? And then for AIT, which is like our specialized vocation in the Army, I was distinguished honor grad, which put me at the highest GPA for that, right? So it's like typically in the Army or military, you've kind of got one or the other, but I was both smart and a good soldier, right? So that opens up doors to, okay, well, what do you want to do, right? What do you actually want to do when you are in the military? Where do you want to go? What are your experiences? In the military is, a choose your own adventure book, right? If you remember the old choose your own adventure books, that's exactly what it is. You can pick whatever it is you can do as long as you're able to, meet the requirements. So I said, okay, well, I want to live in a certain place and I would like to get into cyber. And they're like, all right, so.
Well, why did you choose cyber?
Long term, right? So this was 2012, and I could see, hey, for work, vocational purposes, this is going to be a great thing. My wife and I were working 5 jobs. She worked 3, I worked 2.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, and it's like, this isn't sustainable for life. We had just got married, and I was like, if you let me join the Army, right? So that was the first part. If you let me join the military, if you let me join the Army, and then when I get out, we can have a life that we want, because, this thing will pay really well. So picked that, and it all worked out. But the important part is not the degree, is not the background, it's the capability to continue to ask questions, right? So I walked into my my new workplace, 3-letter agency with the federal government, and went and sat next to the other Army people and said, hey, what do you guys do? They're like, nothing. Like, why are we here? They put us here. Okay, moving on. Went to the federal employees that we worked for and said, hey, what do you want me to do? They're like, go sit over there. I said, I don't want to sit over there. They said, well, why not? It's like, because they're not doing anything. I want to do something. And they're like, okay, well, do this. And I started just doing training, right? The annual training that everybody in the federal government has to do. And I always laugh because once I finished my first training, I said, well, how do I print this off? And they're like, well, you have to map it to the printer. I said, how do I map to the printer? It's not there. They're like, are you serious right now? It's like, yeah, I don't know how to, they're like, you're in a cyber job and you don't know how to map to the printer? I said, well, teach me, So that became the whole mantra there at that first duty station was teach me. So one of my biggest mentors there would continually say, and still says to this day, you really don't know how computers work, do you? It's like, nope, teach me. You know, it's like there are so many minds, and that's the thing with cybersecurity is it's so broad, and there are so many people that are so technical and so deep in that one thing. All you have to do is find those people, but you have to be willing to ask those questions, and you have to be willing to, you know, whenever they tell you, hey, go sit over there, whenever they tell you, you know, hey, don't worry about it, you know, you're just going to be like everybody else. It's like, I don't want to be like everybody else, because everybody else is just sitting there twiddling their thumbs and not having any fun. Like, I did this for a long-term future for my family, but the reality is you have to enjoy what you're doing, right? And that's the part that I see in cybersecurity over the past 10 years that I've been in it, is there's so many people that are getting into it just for the money. You know, it's just for the livelihood. It's just for that paycheck. And that's wrong. You know, it's a great disservice to the people that you're protecting, for one thing. But the reality becomes it's just like any other job at that point. You know, it's like, if you don't enjoy your job, go, you know, find a different one that you're not claiming to protect people, right? So once, you know, I kind of moved through there, and they realized, okay, he's not going to stop, because they asked me that, you know, like, you don't stop asking questions. It's like, not till I understand it. And then once I understand it, you know, I'm going to drive with it. But once they did that, they're like, well, actually, we need to actually create a training manual. We don't have one. I said, sweet, make it. I'll go through it. They made 3.
Wow.
Each one, they're just like, okay, well, you're not where you need to be. Let's do it again, right? So they ended up making 3 just off of my ignorance, is what I call it, to where now they have a sustainable job training, you know, to, you know, have other people, whenever they come in and don't know how to map to the printer, they can say, okay, well, here's your training, right? And then I just progressed through my military career and had tons of opportunities. Got to work at a agency think tank for 3 years, where it was just a melding of minds, where everybody was essentially a subject matter expert in something, right? My subject matter expertise became asking questions and being that annoying fly that won't leave you alone until you actually give the information that you need to give, right? That's just this aspect of stovepipe, right? Where I've got this information you don't need to know, and I'll just give you this little bit. It's like, I think you can give me more.
So you had a goal and you just stuck to it.
Yep, absolutely.
And you didn't feel like you needed to go back to school to get a cybersecurity certificate or degree or anything?
I'm actually doing it right now. So I've been in cybersecurity for I'm just going to get a generic master's of cybersecurity. I've done.
That's the thing. You didn't need it.
Nope, you don't need it.
But you do need to get it. You do need to get hired, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, so certifications and degrees are nothing more than a foot in the door. And for the federal government, they're a paycheck roster, right? And that's the thing is right now I work for a contracting company, which the contracting company pays you based upon your value, right? Federal government pays you based upon this metric that they have, right? So when I was offered the exact same job that I had already done in the military, right? They don't pay the military anything, but it comes back to you in training, you know, and experience that you can then move into the private sector with, or, you know, so the exact same job I had been doing it this level way up here. And I do have 242 college credits. None of them are computers whatsoever. You know, that's the whole, I just like to learn, right? Most of them are in ministry.
What your college credits are in?
Most of them are in ministry, right? So I've got the bachelor's degree in youth ministry, but I've also got 2 associate's degrees that are just in general stuff, because I wanted to go play sports at a certain school, and you know, the school's like, what are you going to do? I was like, I'll get another associate's, you know, and then I've got some in kinesiology. I've got some in teaching. I've got some in sports medicine, right? So it's just like I just spent way too much time in college.
So do you advise people to join the Army?
I am very pro-military if you're willing to take it seriously, right? So, and this becomes the aspect of so many people join the military to keep from having to do something else, right? But the thing that the military has is they have the largest network in the world that needs protected, and they're the only ones that are willing in cybersecurity to say, yes, you can come mess up on my network, right? So, you know, you join a company, you join a team or whatever, and your job is to protect that network. And then when you don't protect that network, you get in trouble, and, you know, you potentially get fired, right? Federal government has this huge network that they need protected, but they're willing to say, yeah, you can come learn on my network, right? So that's the training aspect, that's the experience aspect that you can't necessarily get anywhere else. I talked to West Point, right? So United States Military Academy.
Yeah, if you went to West Point, you would have gone in as an officer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually did go to West Point straight out of high school, and I left. Yeah, I hated it.
Did you go in as an officer?
No, I didn't stay. I only stayed for a semester, and I was like, adios, folks, because they don't get to pick their job, right? They don't get to pick their livelihood. They train you in leadership, and they tell you to go lead whatever, right? And I didn't like that. I didn't want that for my life. That's not my personality. So I left, and then I enlisted 7 years later when I got to pick my job. And I said I wanted to do cybersecurity because I knew future that would, you know, set me and my family up.
Why did you pick the Army instead of the Air Force or the Marines or the Navy?
So I got accepted to the Air Force Academy, and it was the historical aspect, right? I was like, I got into West Point, sweet, I'll go. You know, I don't like water, I don't like the ocean, so you know, and the Marines, you know, they go to the Naval Academy, right? Coast Guard Academy tried to recruit me to go play football there, but I had already got into West Point, so I told the football coach, hey, I'm going to West Point. He's like,
so
all right.
Were you a football player in high school?
Yeah. I in one of my many colleges that I went to, I played Division III football also.
What position?
So I played all positions in high school, but that particular college wanted me to play defensive end, and I weighed 190 pounds. They're like, we're a pass rush defense. I'm like, I'm gonna get killed. So anyway, yeah.
When you joined the Army, weren't you afraid of being sent overseas to one of the war zones?
No, and that's the thing with cybersecurity. So, and this is the other part about joining the Army. My uncle, so I was a 35 November in the Army, right? Previous to 35 November, when they reclassed the job titles, the job descriptions, it was a 98 Charlie. So my uncle was a 98 Charlie since 1984 or 1982. And he actually teaches the 35 November course to this day, right? So he got out of the Army in 2004, and he's been teaching that course. So I didn't know exactly what the job entailed, but he gave me a pretty good idea. He's like, you'll be good at this, go do it, right?
Okay.
Which, once again, it's that mindset, you know, it's the, hey, you ask a lot of questions, you really like to learn things, you like to dig into stuff, you know, it makes sense. And even, you know, he talks about, because he's been doing this, teaching my job, you know, within the military for so long, he's like, the top students teach themselves. It's like, he's like, it has nothing to do with us. The very foundational course is, do you have the ability to think in a complex term, right? Do you have the ability to solve anagrams? Do you have the capability, if we put a hard puzzle in front of you, that some of them are designed to not be solvable, you'll continue to work on it until we either tell you time, or you figure it out and you figure out that, hey, this isn't solvable, right? So
you have to go into cybersecurity, you have to be a puzzle solver.
Or at least willing to say, I don't know, to where, you know, and that's where the different levels of cybersecurity come in. to where, you know, maybe you just want to start out as a triage analyst.
Right.
To, hey, this job here, you know, I know the RFCs, I know the requests for comments, and this is what this traffic's supposed to look like. It doesn't look like that. I'm going to take it to the next step and say, hey, this needs to be passed up to somebody else because it's not meeting the RFC, right? And that's
Right.
where I like that cybersecurity has come full circle to, that there are those entry level positions, and that's where a lot of problems with companies comes in, though, where HR recruiters and stuff, they don't necessarily know the nuances and they don't know the difference between this and this and this. So they're like, hey, I need someone with 5 years experience and a master's degree, and we're going to start them out at $30,000. You know, like, I'm going to go somewhere else, right? But it becomes valuable in that, okay, if I can meet these requirements at this place, I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity for the experience and then move, you know, even if it's a lateral move to somewhere else. Because we've talked to, we've had HR recruiters, you know, talk to us before, the hiring companies, hey, cybersecurity is so different than, you know, what we hire for normally. Can you kind of explain some nuances to us? And a lot of it is personality driven, right? It's not that I want to protect company X, it's that I want to work with person G, right? So I follow person G to his next company and his next company and his next company, right? So you may have this short little turnaround to where, okay, well, person G didn't hire me till 6 months ago and then he left. Well, I'm going to go ahead and follow him to that next company, right? So you see these windows where these people are hopping from company to company. That's not necessarily a bad thing within the cybersecurity community, because he may just be following a person, you know, rather than he got fired, he got fired, or he got fired. It's, okay, well, he moved over here because that person left and, you know, he went with them. So they have these different levels to where, hey, I really just need to get my foot in that door. I need that certification. I need that degree to get in there, but ultimately I need that experience. And then once I get that experience, even though I may not appreciate it, you know, then I can move it over, because cybersecurity is such a broad thing. It means different things to different organizations too, you know.
So tell me about, last question. Tell me about the organization you work for now, and what does cybersecurity mean for that organization?
Okay, so I work for a company called Noblis-ESI, and they are a subsidiary of Noblis proper. And we are defense contracting for the federal government. And what we do is whatever problem our customer may have, we come at it from a solutions-driven mindset, right? So no matter what it is, whether it's cyber or whether it's regulatory or, you know, whatever, doesn't really matter to us. If they're willing to say, hey, I trust your judgment, we'll take it on, right? So that's where it comes back to, okay, I'm not necessarily always working in a cybersecurity role. I may need to just put on my thinking cap, right? And say, I can help you solve this problem, right? And that's where the experience of working in a think tank, right, an agency think tank, to where it's like, what is the actual problem here? Because there was a lot of times in that experience, you know, and I'm sure I just started working for this company, and we're going to see that more moving in the future, that they come to us with a problem that isn't really the problem. You know, there's a root problem somewhere else, and that's cybersecurity as a whole. You know, you see almost the symptom of the problem over here, whether it's the intrusion or the incident. But what is really the overarching issue is maybe it's a vendor that you have that continually has exposure, and it's really the culture that's the root problem. You know, and it just happened to exhibit itself through this open S3 bucket or whatever.
So last thing, you're talking to someone in their teens or in their 20s, and they want to get into cybersecurity. I mean, there's so much cybersecurity fraud. There's so many things being breached, so many crimes happening. They want to get into it. What's the first thing they should ask themselves, or what's the first thing they should do? They say, okay, I want to change my career. I want to move into this direction. What's the first thing they should do?
The first thing that I always ask people is why. You know, do you want to protect people or do you want to make a paycheck, right? And if you want to make a paycheck, you're going to get burnt out because it is a hard thing, right? Cybersecurity is time consuming and it's a mindset. It's not just an 8-hour-a-day job, because the hackers don't come in at 3 p.m, right? They come in the middle of the night because most of them are working in a different time zone. So the reality becomes, hey, if I'm just doing it for a paycheck, it's probably not going to work out for me. It's going to be a very short-term thing. So am I willing to invest this much time, energy, and money into something that's going to end up being short-term, or am I doing it because I want to protect something? I want to be a part of something. I want to, help whatever the company is that I may be working for, right? And as long as it's that why, there are so many different avenues. There are so many different ways to get there. There's the military, there's the college, there's trade schools, there's certifications. There's a ton of programs where it's just like this organization with the Disruptive Technologists, right? Where it's like, hey, I'm going to join this group. These people have experience, they have a lot of connections, they have a lot of networks, and they can help mentor me to make sure that I end up in a good spot to where I'm just not floating out there by myself. Because if you are floating by yourself, it's a lot more difficult, right?
Great. That's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will be contacting you, but thank you for that. I think it's going to be really helpful for our viewers, our young followers.
Yeah.
And good luck. And I'll let you know when this is published.
All right, perfect. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right, bye.